I want to start this one talking about the top six. The top six this year it's really interesting. I would say by this point, and I think you would agree, you probably have two teams who are probably first, second, are fighting for between the two, tussling, and everyone else picks up the scraps for third and fourth. But this year, top six, very interesting for Gallagher Premiership. I think we could have 6, maybe 7, but we'll keep it to 6 for this show today. But we think there's a couple of teams that could come from nowhere this year and surprise us. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you are spot on. I think it's about as exciting and as tense as I can remember at a halfway point or just over halfway point in any Premiership season for a long time. And like you say, no one can get away, can they? No one can leave the pack. I think if I remember back to last season about this time, I think Saracens had gone 10-0 and were steaming away, but no one can do it this season. Should we have a quick run through and just remind ourselves of what the top six looks like at the moment and just exactly how tight it is? So, top of the pack, Saints. Surprising for me. They have got 34 points, having won 7 games. Next is probably the most surprising. Exeter also have won 7 games, 33 points. Sale missed their chance to go top on Saturday. If they'd have beaten Saints, they would have more points, but currently they're stuck on 32, having won 7 games. Then we move into the next 3 have all won 6 games. So you've got Bath on 32, Saracens on 31, and Quins on 31 as well. And I know we're going to focus on the top 6 here, but it's just worth mentioning, next club beneath that is Leicester on 25. So that's the only point where we start to see a little bit of a gap in those levers. A bit of a dip. And it's interesting in terms of a bit of a dip. So I'm thinking, which teams may have been most affected by the World Cup? And I think from memory, I think Saracens had something like 13, maybe 13 or 14 players at the World Cup, and Leicester had 10. And of those teams we've looked at there, they're probably the two who are languishing more than we'd expect. I mean, what do you reckon, mate? Do you think the World Cup has an impact on teams as they come into the next Prem season?
I think it kills off players. I think it just absolutely mullers them. There's no way you can come back from a high competitive competition like that, whether you're a small nation or a large one doing a handful of games, or you're playing every single one up into the final.
Yeah,
it's not the games themselves. I think is the issue. I think it's the training camps. I think it's that lack of break, and then the training camps, and the fact that you go straight back into the full season. I know a lot of the clubs offer players a week or 2 off before rejoining the club, but I think many players will want to jump right back in. I think there's probably some faux pas pressures. I think there's elements of new contracts, new signings. There's obviously a lot of movement around to different clubs, with Irish falling away at the end of last season, and also you have a lot of returning countrymen come back to England from France and etc.
I was going to say, I think England, having got through to that final weekend of the tournament, has probably had a much bigger impact than normal. Because I think we probably would have expected them to be having a couple of weeks break between the start of the season and the end of the tournament. And yeah, there was no gap, was there? They were straight back into it. Whereas you look at somebody like Finn Russell, who went out in the group stages with Scotland, and he was firing straight away for Bath, wasn't he? So yeah,
he is looking reborn.
He is, and I think it is absolutely down, to the World Cup having an impact on this. But it's great to see some other sides kind of pushing through and really performing, isn't it? And I think one other thing I noted when I was just having a little look at stuff earlier in the week is Saints only had 5 players at the World Cup. So, they're most of their squad has been having a good pre-season together, and really been able to finesse and refine what they're doing. And again, if we look to 4 years ago, the last World Cup, again it was a bit topsy-turvy then as well. So that was the last season that Exeter won it, and I think they did the double that season. They beat Wasps in the final, who are obviously no longer. But the other 2 semi-finalists, and this might surprise you, was Bristol and Bath. And again, I think that was the last time Bath had got into the playoffs. So let's have a look at these top 6 sides and see how we think they're doing. So I think the standout one for me at the moment, Northampton Saints, top of the league, albeit wouldn't have been top of the league had Sale hung on to that 14-point lead. But either way, doing tremendously well. And I think this season, they've actually managed to stem their poor defence. And they've just in general got way, way better game management. They've won games this season that I don't think they would have won last season. And defensively, because obviously they were shockingly bad defensively last season, possibly the season before, they have made 200 more tackles than the next closest team in the top 6, which I just think is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Is impressive. The work rate they have. I mean, you're right about what you're saying about the games. They've won against this season already against Toulon, Sale at home, Exeter at home, Bath at home. They've had a couple losses away, but I mean, it was the start of the season. They've just gone from strength to strength since.
Definitely. And from a game management point of view, they've also had the most kicks than any other team. So that half-back pairing is really working for them. And they've also made the most, I think it's the most kicking meters out of any top 6 team as well. Again, by some distance. So they're nearly up to, I think it's about 11,000 meters. And the next nearest team is way, 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 way down from that. So yeah, they are. I think they've been awesome so far this season. Really enjoyed watching them when I've caught up with their games. But another team who've blown me away this season, and I really, really wasn't expecting this, Exeter.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. Exeter, obviously, they've been through. I don't even you could call it transitional. It's been like momentous change, haven't they, over the last couple of seasons? A lot of their senior players.
They lost their way. They lost their identity. Not just lost their players. I feel like Baxter lost his head at points.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. And they've now got a really young squad, but a young squad that is blowing things up. They have got the best attack in the league so far, by some distance. They are the top point scorers. They're also the top try scorers. So they've scored 43 tries this season. And 292 points.
If I can add there, they scored a total of 47 last season, which I think had them 4th most scored tries in the league last year. So, I mean,
amazing.
They just need one more big win against the club, and they've already smashed that.
So they've absolutely blown me away with what they've achieved so far. 5 out of 5 wins at home, and a club like Exeter relies on their home form. They've been brilliant at home for probably over a decade, give or take the last year or so. So yeah, good to see them back in form. And then we can look at Sale. So Sale's an interesting one for me. Obviously, they did really well last season. They got to the Prem final, really were within a good sniff of winning that game as well. They had a moment of ascendancy in that second half where they could have taken it away, but maybe a little bit of lack of experience just stopped them from doing that. I think they have got a strong pack. It looks very solid. But the interesting thing with Sale is going forward, they have got the lowest points for per average game out of the top 6. They've only scored 19 points average in each game so far, which really surprises me with the quality of their backline. That really did surprise me.
Who's next on your target list?
My next on my target list is our friends down in the southwest, Bath. Now, Bath. Wow.
Bath for me,
yeah,
most impressive team this year. Not just because it's a different team. I feel if we look at the likes of Northampton, they still have the same attack. They've just really fortified their
core of players, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you look at Exeter, I feel they've just kind of begun to play the rugby they've always tried the last 2 seasons, but just kind of fell flat. Because I don't think they had the right players, but it's Bath's had not just a facelift; it's had the whole body done.
Yeah, I personally think they got the best 2 halfbacks in the league. That mix of Spencer and why have I forgotten his name? Help me out here.
Finn Russell.
Where did that go? Too much beer. Christ. Too much beer over Christmas. Yeah, I mean Finn Russell.
You were just talking about him just before.
I know. I was. He's been a revelation, hasn't he? And Bath have been poor for a number of years, and now they look like they're fulfilling the potential that they've always had in that squad. The one thing I'd say is they aren't pulling together consistent 80-minute performances. They're having wonderful patches in the matches, but then they're letting teams back in. And the other interesting thing there for me is they have got the least amount of rucks in the top 6. So again, I wonder if that's down to that half-back combination, some clever play that's just avoiding, the forwards having to get too involved in rucks. But so great to see them performing back the way they should have been performing for a number of years.
Maybe a little a thought there is that I feel they don't need to rely on the ruck as much as other clubs because their backline is so big.
Yeah.
That their backs are just as dominant and can contest as well as many of the forwards could in ruck. So they don't need to have the big guys, the forwards, doing the heavy lifting and pass off to the backs. It's much more of a fluid state. With the likes of Lawrence and Cocker-Singer on the wing, it's just these are big guys who can power through a lot. So it's I feel, especially with the likes of Finn Russell, if you look at the gameplay he is much more of a talisman. He does as he wants. The team have to adapt around him rather than he is the head figure of the team. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe that's where they're kind of losing a little bit of form, maybe losing a little bit of structure, because they don't have their defined roles and they don't have known structure, and Finn just helps make the magic occur. Finn just makes magic happen and everyone else has to kind of go
catch
along
up
with it. Yeah. So I feel maybe that's where they're slipping a little bit. Maybe but I feel like you can never really keep Finn down.
Oh no, he's irrepressible player. He's lit that club up, and I think bold move by Bath going for him, and it's obviously paying dividends already. So great to see them back in the mix again, isn't it? Then we move on to Saracens. Now, for me, Saracens are struggling this season. They've lost 2 games at home already. They didn't lose at home at all last season, and it all just looks a little bit erratic and vulnerable.
Big losses this year to big teams have been Exeter with that awful opening game, as we spoke before, 65-10 away at Exeter. They lost to Bath at home, which second game of the season, there was a lot of players out, but 25-16. They lost against Bulls, 27-16, first game of the Champions Cup, which they never really looked to be contesting in it. They never really looked like they were really fit for the game fully. Felt like it was always just out of reach. And then the two losses against 2 of the big dogs this year, Northampton and Sale, both being lost away. We would always be dominant at home and, pick up good points away, but we seem that away is real treacherous for us this season. I feel we don't have a core squad. I feel that's not just because of a rotation of players kind of coming to the end of their time with the club, and also a crop of new players in this kind of blend where we haven't found our nice medium.
No, I would agree. And interestingly, just to kind of add to one of the things you were saying, Saracens, if you just took away form this season, would be top of the league. They've got the best away record. So they've had 3 wins on the road, 2 defeats, and likewise 3 wins at home, 2 defeats. But it just all looks very fragile. And then let's wrap up the top 6 by talking about Quins for a minute. Again, Quins, notorious for their attacking flair. I love to watch Quins, I really do. I think they're a brilliant side. But interestingly, this season, they've started to change things around a little bit. So I don't know if you know this, but they've got the best set piece percentages out of the top 6 clubs this season. They got a 95% success rate on scrums and a 91% success rate on lineouts, which is brilliant. And they've also, and this is the stat that blows my mind, and I think this is kind of probably what's kept them hanging around in the top 6, is they have had 85 turnovers this season so far.
85,
which is 15 more than any other team. And again, a little bit like Saracens, though, when they get beat, they're getting thumped. So if you think about the home defeat they had to Saracens, and also against Toulouse, it all went south very quickly, didn't it? Again, I know that's Champions Cup, it's different, but that sort of propensity to lose games big as well is interesting. So obviously, lovely, tense, kind of unpredictable results going on. Nobody can pull away, but we've now got to put nail our colours to the mast. We've got to make a commitment.
Can't be predicted, but we got to predict.
We've got to predict it. We have got to predict it. We've got to come up with our top fours.
Right, from fourth to first, for me, and I know logic dictates this, and I think the stats also dictate this, but I do think Saracens will sneak into that fourth position. And I only say that because we do have quality players. I just don't think they're quite showing it. I think we have a load of many players injured right now, which will come back and make a big push for the end of the season. And I think we've got a lot of new players who are really starting to find their footing right now, like Tom Wilson and the new flanker. Yeah, the new flanker.
Gonzalez, amazing player, yeah.
And I think just the experience will get us to fourth, but I think it will be laboured.
Yeah. Now, very, very boringly, and having not conferred on this at all, I've literally got written down exactly what you said. I think Saracens will also sneak into the top four, but in fourth place. And I think for all the reasons you said, and, they've had a lot of injuries, which all teams do, but I think you're going to start seeing a lot of those players come back in the second half of the season. So, yeah, I'm going Saracens for fourth as well. So let's hope we haven't got exactly the same list here, because that would be pretty dull. But who are you seeing getting that third spot?
I think Exeter. I think they're just too sharp, too good. I think they'll just keep scoring a load of tries. I think they'll just be explosive. I think they'll have some hard losses, but I think they'll get to third probably quite comfortably. I do think there'll be a gap between third and fourth at the end of the season.
Interesting. I have not gone for Exeter. I have gone for the mighty Quins. I'm just looking at their stats. Quins, yeah, looking at their stats and that platform. What they're doing is they're building platform with great set piece, great turnover ball. They are building platform, and it's platforms that win games, isn't it? I know we all love to watch massive attacking flair, but if you can't keep hold of the ball and build that momentum, build that pressure, build that phases, you don't go anywhere. So I can see them doing well. I think both Smith and Kerr are playing beautifully. So that's my prediction is Quins third.
Second, I'm predicting Sale. I think they do have the best squad in the league. I just think they're underperforming. I think they have a year ahead of everyone else in development right now. I think they'll push them on, and I think they'll get them the home semi.
Now, it's interesting because, again, probably quite boringly, I've also gone for Sale second. And I probably wouldn't have said that a week ago. I probably would have had them at first a week ago. But just looking, in detail at some of the stats of the other teams and just what they're doing, for me, Sale aren't scoring enough points probably to really romp away with things. But they're a very strong team. Again, strong at home. They've won all 5 games at home this season. So I think if they land a home semi, boom, they're back at Twickenham again.
I feel we both know.
I think we do know. Yeah.
Northampton. Yeah.
The Saints.
Northampton?
Yeah.
I think they just know their game better than anyone else. I think they have the best attack in the league. And I think they probably have some of the most informed players. I think the likes of Courtney Law, which I think is such a shame that he is, as I said, got retired from England now.
Yeah, I'm spot on there. I'm absolutely Saints. Statistically, the strongest team by a long way, and they are. I mean, if you kind of do a bit of in-depth looking, they're topping a lot of categories, both defensively and attacking point of view. So they are there. I think the other thing they've got is they've always had magnificent home support. So I think if they really get on a roll, their fans are going to get right behind them, and they're going to be an incredibly difficult team to beat. And every time they win a game this season that they wouldn't have won last season, you could just see their confidence growing and growing and growing. And like you say, Law's playing beautifully. Also, Furbank playing magnificently this season as well. So I think they've got some. They'll take some beating. Actually, I can see them starting to pull away a little bit. So there we have it. That is our predictions. Top 4. I can't wait to get there and find out. I mean, I have to say, although
It's
we've
going
only
to be
got...
tense. It's going to be
nail
biting all the way through.
Yeah, even though we've only... even though we've only got 10 teams in the league, which is really sad, and we are missing the 3 teams that disappeared, it's making for a real quality league, I think. So yeah, no, exciting stuff. Can't wait.
Wasn't that video great? If you like that, there's no one right here for you to watch. Go click it, and then make sure you get notified for all things Rugby Social. Give us a like and subscribe just down below. And welcome to the club. Cheers.